I've always hated SeaWorld. As a kid growing up in Florida, my family took trips to Orlando very frequently, and everyone who goes to these parks knows that Universal and Disney are just better theme parks than SeaWorld. As a kid, I went to theme parks to ride rides, and I mean the marine animals were cool and all, but I cared more about the Hulk and Tower of Terror. When I started growing up, I learned a new reason to hate the park. This is Kayla, and Nat Geo wrote about her in 2019, before they became one of Disney's Infinity Stones of corporations. She was a 30-year-old killer whale living in SeaWorld, until she died in the park. It's unknown why she died, SeaWorld won't say, but scientists predict that if she were in the wild, she would live well into her 50s, maybe even up to 80 years old. Stories like these are what fuel my animosity towards SeaWorld, and also their crappy rides. Today, I want to talk about keeping marine mammals in captivity. Should we keep marine mammals in captivity in parks like SeaWorld? No, we shouldn't. Just kidding. I've done way too much research for this video to be that short. First, I want to talk about a brief history of keeping marine mammals in captivity, then talk about what the research says, then talk about some counter-arguments, and then finally give you guys some potential solutions to this problem. So where does this all begin?
According to an article by One Green Planet, capturing marine mammals to be put in aquariums began back in the 1860s, with beluga whales and dolphins being captured to be put on display throughout the US and Europe. So, perhaps President Lincoln and his wife should have taken a visit to the aquarium instead of a play for date night. In 1938, Marine Land of Florida opened up under the name Marine Studios and began to house bottlenose dolphins. In 1947, they were home to the first captive-born bottlenose dolphin. This brought hundreds of thousands of tourists to Jacksonville, and people took notice.
Not to flex, but I live about 30 minutes from Marine Land. I used to go all the time. It's pretty cool. This is ironic, by the way. Eventually, some people were like, isn't this like kind of bad? And so in 1972, the Marine Mammal Protection Act was passed, which sounds great and all if you don't know how to read. In the legislation, it says that any entity providing an education or conservation program based on professionally recognized standards of public display community can legally own and capture and breed marine mammals. So SeaWorld can be like, yeah, we're totally educational and we're all about saving the animals. Now, can we get back to killing orcas? So where does that leave us today? Well, I couldn't find any exact numbers, but there hasn't really been a slowdown in the marine mammal captivity game, with SeaWorld still offering crappy rides and marine encounters to kids for educational and conservation purposes. They may not be capturing as many animals, but there's still no limit to their breeding game. This is still a major issue, but there are a lot of scientists trying to sound the alarm on this problem. More on that later. You may be thinking to yourself, I mean, yeah, sure, separating baby whales from their families and killing dolphins for fun is bad and all, but once they get inside, I'm sure it's a great time. And also, that shirt looks really good on you. Well, you'd be wrong about one of those things. Staying in captivity is no 5-star hotel, more like a Motel 6, except it's 7 square feet and the manager wakes you up at 8 a.m. to entertain the other guests.
There are many factors as to why marine mammal captivity is bad, all basically stemming from not being able to create environments like the wild. Dolphins and whales need to swim large distances daily, and keeping them in tanks is not allowing them to do that. In addition, these situations the animals are put in are often very stressful, resulting in stress-related illness. Studies have shown that these animals in captivity have several times more health conditions than their wild counterparts, according to an article by the Animal Welfare Institute, and the veterinary care for these animals is pretty scarce. Companies that hold these creatures have nothing forcing them to give up medical information on their animals, so they normally don't, and this makes it hard to research veterinary practices of captured marine mammals. And also, being socially isolated from others of their kind can be kind of depressing. Orcas and dolphins don't like locking themselves in their rooms to play Fortnite for hours. They're very social creatures.
Talking about death is bleak, but it's important for us to understand. I mentioned Kayla earlier, and she is one of many whales that have died while in human captivity since marine mammal enslavement has begun. The Florida Sun Sentinel has examined the last 30 years of investigative work by the U.S. government on marine mammal enslavement, and they have found that over 4,000 sea lions, seals, whales, and dolphins have died while in captivity. And this number doesn't look too good, but one also has to consider the quality of life these animals endured before they pass. These animals are literally fighting for their lives. Orcas have purposefully killed 4 of their trainers and injured dozens of others as protests of their captivity. Now you may be saying to yourself, Sam, how can you possibly justify the enslavement of marine mammals given all the information that I just presented? And also, what is the meaning of life? Well, I can probably answer one of those things. A lot of the counter arguments given by SeaWorld and people who hate everything but themselves is that these animals are being provided a better life free from the wild, and they're also having them in captivity also provides research opportunities and rehabilitation for injuries to these animals. Basically, none of these are true. Despite removing all the dangers of the wild, captured marine mammals have a much shorter lifespan on average than their wild counterparts. In addition, putting animals on display isn't really conservation. If they really cared, they let them flourish in the wild like they have for thousands of years. In addition to that, not much money from these facilities is actually put towards research, and animals that are rehabilitated and released back into the wild very frequently die immediately. There have been very few, we're filming the video here, there have been very few cases of animals that have been released back into the wild that have survived long term. These animals that are being rehabilitated are basically being saved and then put on display for entertainment for the park. Scientists and animal activists have been trying to sound the alarm on this issue for a while now. Back in 2013, a documentary called Blackfish was released, which detailed SeaWorld's violent mistreatment of marine mammals, according to Scientific American. This documentary did alert the public to this issue and made it more mainstream. Unfortunately though, SeaWorld is still there, and they've grossed between $1.2 and $1.46 billion annually since 2010, according to the Econo Times. So what's the solution? Well, maybe parks like these shouldn't go away entirely. I mean, they do inspire a lot of kids to get into science and working with animals, like Jennifer Roberts, a marine biologist at the University of Miami. But clearly they can't stay the same way because of like all the stuff I talked about in this video. Well, lucky for you, there are a lot of petitions to sign that would want to like shut down SeaWorld and stuff like that. I can't sign any more of them. I've already signed like 20. You can also donate to the Dolphin and Whale Conservation, which are actually working towards conserving whales and dolphins. You can also donate to the Whale Sanctuary Project, which are trying to make a gold standard sanctuary for whales and dolphins. I'll put links to all of those in the description below. I hope this video was informative, and frick you, SeaWorld. Okay, bye.